as efficient as possible while we handle the heavy caseload that the judges do carry in the 19th Judicial District. Thank you.
Now we will hear from Robert Bateman.
Good evening. Thank you for being here tonight and allowing me to speak with you. I'm Robert, or Rob Bateman. I'm a candidate for Circuit Court Judge Part 4. I have a record of experience, and I have a record of being a Republican. You know, I went to a meeting in April back in Nashville, and one of the speakers there talked about the people that are wanting to be in public service are really wanting to be an elected employee. This particular person said if you're not happy with your elected employee, you need to go talk to them and eventually remove them if you're not happy. But I'm seeking you, the folks out there that are going to vote, I'm seeking a job from you. The job is Circuit Court Judge. I'm asking you to elect me as your elected employee. Now, you've heard a little bit about the job description. There's two positions. There's Circuit Court Position Division 3. You heard from the three candidates for that. And there's Part 4. You heard a little bit about what the Circuit Court does. It handles criminal cases. It handles jury trials in criminal cases. It decides where people go to jail or whether they go on probation. It handles divorce cases. It decides where children go. You heard all of that. Let me tell you a little bit about my qualifications. Anytime you're interviewing somebody for a job, you want to know about their qualifications. I grew up here in Clarksville. I went to public schools here. I graduated from Clarksville High in 1983, go Wildcats. I went on to Austin P. I graduated there from the accounting degree in 1987, go Govs. And then I had the opportunity to go to Vanderbilt Law School. My wife doesn't like this. I'll say go Doors. She says go Balls. But since then, I had an opportunity to go to work in a large farm in Memphis, Tennessee. But I came back here, and for the last 25 years, I have practiced law with my father. I have tried criminal cases to a jury trial. I've tried civil cases, tried car wreck cases. I've tried divorce cases, tried just about every case that comes before this court. And before Mr. Red knocks on the one more time, I think I will finish up. But I'd like to tell you a little bit more about my family if I have an opportunity. Thank you for your time.
It's up to me. Glad to have you for the second forum tonight. I think we'll all admit one thing, whether you were here for the first forum or if you just arrived. We've got 5 outstanding people, and Republicans are very lucky to have these 5 people running for these offices. We're going to start with Miss Ayers, by far the best looking of our candidates. You're welcome. And we'll start out just like we did in the first forum. Can everyone hear me all right? Okay. What is your judicial philosophy?
Sure. As a circuit court judge, I've taken an oath already to follow the laws of the state of Tennessee, the laws of the Constitution of the United States and the Tennessee Constitution. And that's my philosophy. At the trial court level, it is our job to listen to the facts, listen patiently, and apply the law as it exists. We are not a policy-making body at the trial court level. As some of the other candidates spoke earlier, even if there are laws that we don't like, it's our job at this level to support those. And that's what I am doing currently as circuit court judge. It's the oath I've taken, and that's what I'll continue to do.
Thank you, Mr. Bateman. You have a minute and a half.
As everybody has said, this trial court here decides facts based upon what the law is. We don't make the law. We don't really interpret it. We're stuck with what there is. And the candidates and other, Ray said that, Ms. Ayers has said that, everybody agrees with that. If there are decisions you're not happy with, you need to go to the legislature. Elections matter, so if you have decisions in the last months or over the last year that you're not happy with, remember, not for just this election, but every election, go vote, and go vote for who represents the ideal, the values that you have. I think that's important. But this court here is not going to be one that is going to decide policy-making issues.
All right, just hold on to the mic unless Ms. Ayers has a rebuttal. All right. Have you been on a board of directors or any company, business, or association, charitable or for-profit? And if so, who were they or are they?
I have not been on any boards of directors of any large banks or corporations. I did practice law with my father, and we are incorporated, so I'm on the board of that firm. We have our board meetings, I guess, by the coffee pot. That's the only business board I've been on. I have been on, Austin P has a board of advisors for the business school. I served on that for 2 years. I had, at one time, was on the board of directors for the Clarksville Rotary Club. I was on the board for Leadership Clarksville. And I'm trying to think back to several other charitable organizations. But as to any businesses, the only one is, and I'm proud to be on it, is with my father. And again, our board meetings are pretty informal.
Thank you. I'll start with what I'm currently doing and then the things that I've done in the past. I'm currently on the board of SAFE, which is a not-for-profit organization called Soldiers and Families Embraced, and we provide free counseling services for military service men and women and their families. And that's a great board I've been proud to be a part of, and I'm still on that. I also am currently on the board of Leadership Tennessee and the executive committee of that. That's a 10-county regional leadership group that meets once in each of the 10 counties, and I'm on the executive committee of that. Now, I've been on a lot of other boards in the past, and when you become a sitting judge, you have to get off of a lot of those things. So I have served on the board of directors of Legends Bank, and was the HR chair of that bank and vice chair of the board. But once I was appointed, I had to resign from that position. I've also been on the board of, it's now defunct, Treehouse Daycare Center. Some of you may have remembered that. That was a not-for-profit daycare. That was a great opportunity. It was sad when our funding ran out, and that was, had to terminate. I've also been on the board of Junior Auxiliary, Leadership Clarksville, and I think that's it as far as actually serving on boards. And I was for many years a member of Batson Nolan PLC, which is where I practiced law prior to becoming a judge, and served as a board member in that capacity as well.
Next question, you go first, Ms. Ayers. What is your view on the Second Amendment?
Well, as you know, we've already talked about the fact that I have taken the oath. We did it as lawyers, and I've done it again as a judge, to take an oath to follow the Constitution of the United States of America and of the state of Tennessee. I believe that all of the amendments are to be followed, and that certainly includes the Second Amendment. So,
With judicial candidates are kind of limited in what they can say, but let me tell you, I told you earlier that I went to a meeting in April in Nashville, and I heard a speaker talk about elected employees, and that meeting I was at was the NRA convention. I took part of my continuing education for law practice. I took a 7-hour course at the NRA meeting. I've been a member of the NRA since the 1990s. I have a carry permit. My wife has a carry permit. I'm not carrying right now. But I believe, without violating the tenets of what we can say about how we would view a particular case, that I'm very strongly pro the Second Amendment.
We will start with Mr. Bateman. Let's make this a two-part question. Tell us what life experiences have helped you to be a judge, and why are you seeking the office?
Back when I was about 35, there was a judicial position open, and I put my hat in the ring for that. And I didn't get that. It's a good thing, because I was 35 or 36, and I didn't have life experiences that I've had since then. I have a 17-year-old that has provided me a lot of life experiences. I have an added twist to that I went through a divorce, and I have managed through that with a son in a separate family. That taught me a lot of life experiences. I have been fortunate that I have a very lovely wife, and she has taught me a lot of life experiences. I think that to be a judge, you know, if you're young and you don't have a little gray hair, you're not able to decide those life decisions that come before you. So I think those are the life experiences. And the second part of your question was?
The second part is, why are you seeking the judgeship?
I believe that I'm a very good lawyer, but as a lawyer, you have to advocate as strongly as you can for your client's position within the bounds of it, whether you believe that they're ultimately right or wrong. That's a lawyer's job. But I think my true talents, everybody has different talents, is to seek the right decision as a judge, or to lead a jury and oversee a jury as they make their decision. And that's why I seek it. I think I have the talent. I don't mean that in an egotistical way, but I just think everybody has different talents, and that's one of the talents I believe I've been given.
I'm going to do those in reverse order then, as far as why I'm seeking the position. Of course, I am currently already the judge, but I sought to apply for that. After practicing law for 23 years, it's kind of always been in the back of my mind that that would be a next great step. I have a record of serving this community. I love this community. It's provided my family and me a great support system and a great living through the years, and so I like to give back. So after 23 years of practicing law, it seemed like a great opportunity to combine the things that I enjoy doing. I also talk about the leadership programs that I'm in, so it's just the perfect culmination of leadership, service, and my legal skills. And I was encouraged by a lot of people in the community to apply. We've had no diversity on the court at all, and so that was a reason I think other people thought I should apply, and that just helped me after talking to my family and some prayerful consideration to decide to apply. Life experiences, whew, we don't have enough time for all that. But I'll tell you this, I mean, as sitting as a judge, you have to have common sense, and you have to have those life experiences. You have to be able to see when people are, you know, telling the truth, not telling the truth. And I have a background that allows me to do that. I had the right upbringing with my parents. I too have been through a divorce. I have co-parented and have done it very successfully. I have actually even been a defendant in a lawsuit. I was personally sued. It was a very frivolous lawsuit, but it was an incredibly frustrating experience, and it has provided me a lot of empathy for being on the other side. That probably was one of the best things that has happened to me. Fortunately, again, it was a groundless suit and it's been dismissed, but that really helped me see what it was like to be on the other side.
All right, everybody here, everything good? All right. What do you see as the biggest legal problem confronting our community, and what will you do to address this problem?
That's a pretty broad question. The biggest legal problem, I think, we did one of these forums yesterday and had a similar question about what do we hear from people, and certainly people are very concerned about crime. I mean, we've been so fortunate to experience just phenomenal growth in the district, not just Montgomery County, but Robertson County too. But with that growth comes certainly challenges. And so I think some of the crime that we've had is more high profile and sensational, when it hits the newspapers. But our job as judges is to move those cases through the school system. The biggest problem that we face right now is just the overcrowded docket that we experience. Our judges in the 19th Judicial District have the highest caseload for criminal and domestic matters of any judges in the state. And the Position 4, Division 4 that I'm currently filling was designed to alleviate that, but then Judge Castaway retired, so we were back at ground zero. without any real help there. So the biggest thing we can do, and what I've been trying to do, is just make sure that I can open up as many days as possible. Y'all can talk to anybody about me. I think my reputation is very clear. I'm a hard worker. I like to work. The deputies are always like, you know, you're there early, you're working late. What's up with that? That's just how I'm made. That's my work ethic. But I'm getting in there and hearing those cases, trying to open up some new days on the docket, and making sure that we can move those cases through the system, I think is the best way a judge can help address that.
I believe that one problem, the perceptions out there, is that crime is increasing. I do agree that there are more high-profile crimes that seem to be occurring. A court doesn't have a lot of control over preventing crime. The court has control over being sure that those cases get heard, and then, depending upon the outcome of the trial, dealing with sentencing of those issues. But I think crime is at least perceived as being on the increase in Clarksville. I think really the biggest legal problem, and I think Ms. Ayers and the other three candidates in another race would agree, that cases aren't moving through the court. And part of that problem is that we don't have enough judges. And then another part of that problem is that we, in part 3, have a retirement of a judge, and so you're back to square one. To move these cases forward, I believe you need somebody that has experience trying cases. My opponent is a fine person. She's a fine lawyer in the area she practiced. My opponent, to my knowledge, has never tried a criminal case or never represented anybody in a criminal case until she got on the bench. I started my career, a lot of it was appointed cases, but I have heard criminal cases. I have represented folks from the time that they were in jail, and their grandmother or their aunt was calling, wondering how to get them out of jail, through a jury trial. I've handled cases on appeal, both to the Tennessee Court of Criminal Appeals and the Tennessee Supreme Court. And I think to move these cases forward, you need that experience.
Sure. Rebuttal?
Yeah, okay, so I did not have trial practice as a criminal law attorney prior to taking the bench. However, judges are selected based on their experience, their ability to learn, their ability to lead, their community service. Now, what I do have is the actual experience serving as judge now. Since I have been on the bench, I've presided over jury trials, criminal trials, civil trials. I have already disposed of over 187 criminal cases, and I have heard over 1,200 criminal cases. Then there are civil cases that I've heard as well. So no other candidate has the experience of actually serving as judge other than me.
We ready for the next question?
You don't have rebuttal.
You have to ask.
30 seconds.
I would like to ask Ms. Ayers a question of how many of those 187 cases that she's disposed of, how many were actually jury trials?
2 of them were actually jury trials that I have presided over. The others are either, we've had hearings on sentencing matters, we've had hearings on violations of probation and community corrections. A lot of them are plea agreements. A big part of what a criminal court judge does is to listen to the plea agreements that are worked out between the district attorney's office and the defense attorney and make sure they're fair and appropriate and approve those. So that's all included in there.
One thing I'm gonna say, just off the cuff, all these candidates are pretty doggone good, aren't they? All right, here's the question. Do you believe that all citizens have adequate access to legal help and the legal system? If not, what can be done to provide wider and better access? You want me to repeat that?
I don't think so. I think I got it. I think that's always a problem, especially when you're dealing with criminal law. One of the things I did recently, it didn't come up when I talked about the boards, but I was the chair of the Clarksville Service Area Campaign for Legal Aid. And that's one of the ways that people who are not able to afford attorneys can get assistance. We also are fortunate to have the Public Defender's Office, Mr. Nell presides over, and that's a huge budget amount. I mean, the cases that come before me, I get the affidavits from the defendants and decide based on formula if they're indigent or not. If they're indigent, then the public defender's office can represent them. Sometimes the public defender's office has conflicts of interest, and we have to appoint private attorneys to do that, and they do not get paid very much. So there are means by which people can get legal assistance, but I think probably more so in the civil world, there's still folks out there that can't. When I was a practicing attorney, I did a fair amount of pro bono work. It was mostly helping people with wills, probate, and things like that after folks passed away. But more attorneys do need to provide some pro bono services, and that would help as well.
Well, in the criminal arena, as Ms. Ayers has alluded to, we have the public defender, Mr. Dale, right now, who represents indigents, but we also have an overload, and traditionally, lawyers have taken those cases. I know when I started practicing that I was in court a lot on appointed cases. We have a new lawyer with us, a lady named Ashley Travis, and she's on the appointment list. And so most of the criminal cases get handled either through Mr. Dale's office right now, or through attorneys who take these appointed cases. I remember one time when you take one of these appointed cases, sometimes you go above and beyond what you have to. I remember one time I had a client, had no family here, was getting ready to go to trial, and he needed some clothes. And so I had to talk to my wife, I was then dating her, and asked her if she would go with me to Walmart. She said, why? And I said, well, I've got to buy some clothes for a guy so he can go for trial. And that was an interesting date experience, I guess, that when we first met. But the criminal arena, one way or another, people get represented. The civil arena, there are lawyers that will handle pro bono cases, and legal aid here handles some cases. But yes, there's probably a need on the civil side to provide more representation.
All right, let's sort of stay with this train of thought in a way. If you observed a party in your courtroom being poorly represented by an unprepared or ineffective lawyer, how would you handle the situation?
You have a fine line there, because as a judge, you're not supposed to try the case for the lawyer. And you can't really, if you cross that line, even if the lawyer's not doing his job, you may have problems as a judge. Now, there are ways that you might encourage the lawyer to move in different directions, but I think that if you take the case over, that's not a proper role for the judge.
I absolutely agree with Mr. Bateman, and that's, I've been fortunate I haven't had to witness that yet, but that's tough for a judge. We can't try their cases for them. And there are things, as he said, that you can maybe do to encourage or help or lead a little bit in the right direction, but it's very much a fine line. And in the criminal system, there's a way to correct that after trial by post-conviction relief, and you just have to let that play out sometimes. I've got a lot of those cases coming before me and already scheduled, and they're not fun. They're big, thick transcripts that you've got to get through. But that's a way that can provide some remedy on the backside of things if there were, in fact, a situation like that.
All right. Do judges have an obligation to improve public understanding of the courts? And if so, how should they carry out that obligation?
I think we do. You know, you've heard us talk through the night about the judicial code, and there are canons in that code that talks about things that judges and judicial candidates can and can't do. But we are encouraged to do those kinds of things. We can't, as judges, for instance, solicit money. That's one of the things that we can no longer do. But under the big list of things you can't do, it does say that you can go out and do those types of things and help encourage the community to learn more about it. And I'll tell you this, I mean, on the campaign trail so far, definitely there are people that don't understand what circuit court does. There's been a mound of confusion between District 3 and District 4, and we spend most of our time answering those types of questions. And so I appreciate what you folks are doing, and then the other forums that we have where people can become more educated about it. But there are ways to do that. Now, I mean, we're busy all day. You know, this to be a judge is not any kind of retirement or slow down job. It's a busy job from morning till the courthouse closes, whenever that may be, sometimes after hours. But there are opportunities where we can go out and speak to civic clubs, speak to groups, not about particular cases. Again, we're restricted in doing that, but we can try to help educate the public more about the judicial system.
I think it is important that the judiciary go out and explain a little bit more about what the court system is. I appreciate y'all being here tonight. I think that a lot of people are unsure what happens in court. The Supreme Court has a program called SCALES, and it's an acronym, and I'm sorry I can't tell you what it stands for. But the premise behind it is that the Supreme Court goes out and the courts of appeals go out to different communities and actually hear the cases, real cases. And before that, they go out to the high schools and they give information to the high schoolers about what the case that they're going to hear is about. And after it, they have an opportunity for the lawyers that have argued the case to take questions from different students. I had the opportunity on one case I argued before the Supreme Court, an appointed criminal case, to participate in that in East Tennessee. And it was enlightening to me how engaged the high school students were in the case, how interested they were, and it really gave me a good feeling about our next generation that's coming up. But I think that programs like that are good. I think that eventually that could be, you can have a similar program where you bring in students to watch court proceedings here.
Rebuttal? Ms. Ayers.
One other thing just to add is that a very good way to become educated about what the courts do is to not moan and groan when you get that summons for jury duty. You know, nobody ever really wants to do that, but it's an obligation and it's an honor that we have such a good judicial system in this country. And I've talked to jurors after the fact, and they've said, you know what, I didn't enjoy the subject matter, but I'm really glad that I served, and I learned a lot about how courts run that way.
Now, I'll tell you, I love this question, maybe because it's mine. But it's not an easy one, in my
Can
opinion.
everybody here in the back question?
Please.
You're okay? Okay, just want to make sure.
Would you favor or oppose a system in which all sentencing decisions were routinely reported in local newspapers and indexed by the name of the judge?
Interesting question. Yeah, I'll say this about sentencing. You know, we operate under, just like we've talked about all night, the laws are prescribed for us. And sentencing is the same way. We operate under the sentencing guidelines that we have to follow. And that is to those that they are kind of being looked at, maybe need to be looked at, haven't really been updated in a long time. But the sentencing guidelines provide parameters, you know, based on the severity of the crime, the level of what type of felony it is. You have a range, and then you have to look at mitigating factors and enhancing factors, and then there is some discretion there with the judge. So I think a lot of times the public doesn't understand that and get frustrated by some of the outcomes. But I wouldn't say that I'd be opposed to that. I mean, it's all public record anyway. So I've really never thought about it, but that data could be gathered.
I wish they did that with city councilmen and county.
All right, Dale, that's a separate debate.
That's for a few years from
I think that the press does a good job covering the courts, but I think transparency in government is important, and I wouldn't be opposed to that. I think it's a good idea.
Has either one of you ever been disciplined by the Bar Association of the State Commissioner for judicial conduct?
No. We've all had complaints filed with the board, but I had one filed and it was dismissed with that there was no cause. It was not well-founded complaint, it was dismissed. And I think that's probably, I don't want to speak for all the candidates, but I think that's the case everybody has.
Yeah, I echo that. I have had no type of discipline issues. I did have a case where a woman filed a complaint, but it was dismissed, and I've already told you about I was actually a defendant where I was sued, and that was dismissed as well.
I think we all think of judges as being wise and honorable people that look at all sides of a subject. How do you deal with difficult people, including peers, lawyers, clients, or litigants?
I have a lot of experience with that. And as somebody said earlier, just being a parent helps you with that, and being the third of 4 children, that alone gave me a lot of experience in that area. You know, I think, as Rob said earlier, a lot of it's just our age and the experience. I mean, practicing law for 23 years, I can tell you, I had some folks I dealt with that were a joy and a pleasure, and I love to see them walk in the door, and then I had others that were difficult, not necessarily, you know, of their own fault. But as an attorney, as a person, and now as a judge, it's my obligation to treat everybody the same and to treat them fairly and listen to them. A lot of times people are difficult just because they want to be heard. And we have that issue in our judicial system. You know, people do get frustrated. It takes a long time to get to court. And they just want to have their day and their time to be heard. And so I think the best thing we can do is to be patient and to be fair, but to not take abuse. I mean, the courts are the people's court. And if you have someone who is abusive and you know, needs to be cut off periodically, then I think that's okay too. But the main thing is we just need to use those principles our parents taught us years ago and just treat everybody fairly.
Over 25 years, I've dealt with a lot of contrary lawyers, and you have to basically be patient. Sometimes you have to bite your tongue, and then you usually can get through it. The saying that you need to be as nice as you can be, but as mean as you have to be sometimes applies. You have to control your court. But I think the biggest thing in dealing with contrary people is patience and just keeping your cool.
What do you think are the issues regarding alternative sentences for nonviolent offenders?
As in a drug court or a veterans court or just an open-ended question?
Let's just say open-ended.
I think that the General Sessions Court, the lower level courts here, have instituted a drug court and also a veterans court for people that are nonviolent, who have substance abuse problems or other military-related problems, post-traumatic stress, things like that, that's affected their lives. I don't think that circuit court, until it gets moving the cases through, is ready to do that. But I think consideration of a drug court or veterans court at the circuit court level could be a good idea.
I agree. I think that we should be open-minded to look at all kinds of different options there. I agree that I think the drug court and the veterans court in particular have been really successful at the General Sessions level. I noticed in Nashville that they're doing a new court on like sex trafficking. And so there are things that we should look at and can continue to look at. I also agree with Mr. Bateman. Our biggest priority right now is just hearing cases, moving things along the docket. Everyone looks forward to September 1 when Part 3 will be filled and Part 4 will have the consistency. And then, you know, the judges now do a great job of working together and looking at these issues, and we'll have more opportunities to do that after this election.
What do you believe are the causes of the high rate of minority incarceration?
You know, I wouldn't even begin to venture a guess on
That's
that.
low.
I don't feel comfortable that I have the data or the background or even the data to confirm that that is in fact the case. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Rob.
I will agree with Ms. Ayers' assessment of that question and move to the next one. How's that?
That's fine.
Exactly.
Do you believe the composition of juries adequately and fairly reflects society at large?
Our state juries used to be pulled from the voter rolls, and now they're pulled from the driver's license rolls, so it's a random selection. Anybody that has a driver's license is eligible to be picked on the jury. Except, I mean, there's felony conviction, there's certain things that make them ineligible, but I believe that the system that's in place now it draws from everybody, so I don't believe there's an issue there.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, that we have when we're getting ready to try a case, we look at how many jurors we need to bring in, depending on the type of crime, because, we randomly select the first 12 and then 1 or 2 alternates depending on the type of crime. And then the attorneys who are participating in the trial have the opportunity to question the jurors and excuse certain jurors. They have a certain number depending on whether it's a misdemeanor or a felony. So I feel like they have a really good pool to choose from. I'll tell you one thing that's been interesting, and again, it's something we just need to be prepared for. We had one day where all 3 of us had jury trial going at the same time. So I went first, and after we got my group, as soon as anybody was excused, we had to send them back down to the next courtroom so they could try again. I was thinking you'd feel really bad if you didn't get picked on any of the 3 of them, or maybe you were relieved, I don't know. But I do think we have a pretty fair representation. It's funny, back when I first started practicing law and you'd get the jury list, you knew over half of them on there. And I'll say now you get a jury list and I don't know anybody on them, maybe 1 or 2. So I do think it is very much a diverse group of folks as we've grown in this county.
Let's see if we get a good answer on this question. I don't know. How could the cost of judicial administration be reduced? And can you give us any specific examples of how you would, or how maybe in your case you have reduced cost in your law practice or in court?
I don't know, again, that I have the data to be able to answer that question. Our circuit court clerk is Cheryl Castle, and she does a great job, and she administers, she's over all of the budget and the expense of the circuit courts. Now, circuit court judges are actually state employees, so our salaries and the salaries of our staff are come out of the state budget. But one thing I will say, I think we can always do is to just try to be more efficient with, that allocated taxpayer money. One of the things I've done since I've been on the court is try to look at ways where we can have more days that we're using. I don't want to have a situation where a trial got settled or canceled and then there's not anything going on that day. Now that does happen. I mean, we'll set them 4 or 5 deep, the cases, but you can't always guarantee that one's going to go. Last week, when we were anticipating the snow day, one of the things I did was call and see about where we thought our cases on Monday, if we were going to have a jury trial or not. When I found out that we were not, I sent out an email that said in advance, hey, if we get snowed out Friday, we're going to move our Friday's docket to Monday. Because it was what we call a non-jury criminal docket that was about 50, 60-page docket full of cases. And so we didn't lose that whole day on Monday because of that. Now that may or may not have saved money in the long run, but I'm trying to look at ways where we can be more efficient and be more available and have courts more available for the public.
I think the clerk's office has done an outstanding job getting more work done with the same resources that they have, and I think they've done some of that through the use of technology. They've put court records, or at least the docket sheets, online where we can look those up now. That helps lawyers' offices not having to call and ask for information. I think really it's not a matter of reducing costs, it's a matter of the clerk's office here, getting more done without being able to have any more resources, and I think they've done an outstanding job of doing that.
What is your vision for the future of our judicial system, and what changes would you advocate and why?
I think the 19th Judicial District needs a time of stability and calmness in the judiciary. I look forward to having Division III filled, whoever it may be, for the next 6 years, and I believe it will be good when Division IV is filled. I hope it's me, maybe Ms. Ayers, I understand, but I think that the biggest thing that our local judiciary needs is some stability to it. We went through a period where we didn't have a lot of change with judges, and we have lost that in several circumstances beyond everybody's control. But what I hope for the judiciary is that come September 1st, we have in place a team of judges and we have stability.
I absolutely agree. I think that's the greatest need that we have right now. You know, as Mr. Bateman said, we've been through things beyond everybody's control, but there have been some negative aspects to what's gone on in the circuit court, and that's unfortunate. You know, we need good quality judges. I think that all of the candidates in both races are good quality people. But we do need that stability and that consistency, and I think that's where I have an advantage, and I would ask for you to consider that, is that I'm already in there. I've had the opportunity to have training by the Administrative Office of the Courts. I've been to the school that they put on for new judges. I've already stepped in and taken over a heavy docket and am working my way through that. So it's more efficient and effective because I am qualified and experienced to keep that consistency going.
What are the major influences in your life and why?
That's such a broad question. You know, I think that starts, certainly for me, with my faith. That's, you know, a guiding point for me has always been my faith in God. Then my parents. I mean, I was just so fortunate to be raised in the environment that I was, and my parents, forgive me if I'm emotional, because I lost my dad not too long ago, but you know, that's always important, and I still draw on that. And then, of course, just family and friends, but as we judges look at this, I think a guiding principle for us, too, is the law. You know, we chose this as a profession. We've taken an oath to uphold the laws and the Constitution. I've done that as a judge. And those, to me, are my most important influences and guiding principles.
I would also agree that God is the most important thing. I have been fortunate to have two very good parents who happen to be sitting back there. I have a mother who is very dear and kind and sweet, and I have a father who compliments her. I have had the pleasure of practicing law with my father for 25 years, and he has instilled in me, my parents have instilled in me all the good things about me, and any of the bad things about me is my own doing. I also need to especially mention, not at a different level, but co-equal, my wife Kim back there. She has been a blessing. She is kind of my security blanket. I'm a little shy and introverted if I'm walking around, and she has never met a stranger. And then my son, Jonathan, he has taught me, I think he's probably taught me more than I've taught him. And I think that's the way it's supposed to be. I think all those influences are what makes up me.
Wallace, how are we running on time?
Well, we started late. I've got 8:36. I was thinking we go to about 45. Is that okay?
That's up to everybody. Let me ask this.
Because we started late.
Does anyone out there have a question they would like to stand up and ask?
No, they don't. There's no one out there that has a question they would like to stand up and ask. They've got to put it in writing. We can't start it, sorry.
Gotcha.
It's under the rules.
Let's go there. You start.
But I have one.
You got one?
Yes.
Well, go ahead.
The NRA question. If you
I thought
remember
we
the
asked
NRA.
that earlier.
Now, that was the other group of candidates.
Are you a member of the NRA or other conservative group?
As I stated earlier, I've been an NRA member since, I think it was '94, I'm not sure. But I've always been an NRA member. I have a carry permit, like I told you. My wife has a carry permit, and she doesn't have it with her in here, but she has a nice purple gun and also a nice pink gun.
I am not a member of the NRA. I grew up shooting guns on the farm. One of the things I did in my legal practice was, because I had so many clients concerned about their ability to have their guns and pass them on, I got trained and learned how to prepare gun trusts so people could, make sure that they could pass those on through trusts to the next generation without having issues of not being able to do that.
Can I rebut that?
Sure.
I'm not going to rebut what she said, but I too have some experience in forming gun trusts. I also am familiar with Form 4 and Form 1. If anybody's familiar with that, where if you have a weapon that is covered by the National Firearms Act, Form 4 is if you want to manufacture, not manufacture. If you want to self-produce one, you can't manufacture one, but I have experience with that.
Would you, I think you go first. Right.
Yeah, that's right, yes.
Describe for us your most difficult case.
That's not fair. Mr. Bateman gets more time to think about that. I think that there you have levels of difficulty. Some are emotionally difficult, some are legally difficult. One of the more emotionally difficult cases that I handled was I helped a widow whose husband was one of the first ones killed in overseas in this second round. If you'll remember, I don't remember the details now, it was a friendly fire of someone within who came in and shot those soldiers. And so that's really emotionally difficult. Certainly, I've handled a lot of really complex, technically difficult matters. And again, we can't give details from attorney-client privilege, but I would say probably dealing with large sale of a business that involved contracts, details this thick, lawyers from Nashville, from big firms who got paid 3 times what we did, who had a team of them who all thought they were a lot smarter than I was. So those could be really challenging, and I handled a lot of those kinds of things, and you manage through those.
Back in the early mid-90s, I was appointed second chair. That means that you're the assistant lawyer on a death penalty case. And regardless of how that should have come out or what was right or wrong decision, when you are representing somebody in that circumstance, you lose a lot of sleep at night. So that's the hardest case I've ever had, because you've got a lot of responsibility on that kind of case.
You go first this time. What is your greatest accomplishment in your legal career and also in your personal life?
In my personal life, my greatest accomplishment is that I have a great son who's 17, and I have a great wife and good parents, great parents too. My greatest accomplishment in my legal career, I hope I hadn't reached it yet. I hope my greatest accomplishment is to be judge. But at this point, I think it's the fact that I have had a broad range of legal experience, and I'm proud of the fact that I have represented folks that were blessed with wealth, and I'm proud of the fact that I've taken cases for folks that didn't have a dime.
Yeah, I would say certainly my greatest personal accomplishment are my children. Everybody has to feel that way. I'm fortunate I've got a 19 and a 16-year-old, both sons, and whew, so far so good. I'm really proud of them, and they've done well. And certainly as far as my greatest professional accomplishment, I think was being selected by the governor to serve and to fill this new position of District 4. While it's an accomplishment, it's also a great responsibility that I was willing to take on and humbly accept, understanding the responsibility that comes with it.
If I may follow up, but we did have one question that had two parts concerning the NRA. You also asked other groups, if I could make that into a question on its own.
Go right ahead.
For the candidates, we got the question on the NRA. Are you a member of another group, a conservative group, or like the Heritage Foundation or the Campaign for Liberty, or have you ever been a member of the Republican Party Executive Committee on the state or
Or have you
local
ever been a
level?
member of the Communist Party?
I'm looking for more of a Republican type conservative. That's for the other party to do.
Yeah, other than being a member of the local Republican Party and Republican women's organizations, I'm not involved in any other groups to that effect.
I tell this story and everybody says, why do you talk about something that happened in the 90s? But there was a fellow named Fred Thompson who ran for Senate in 1994. And I had the opportunity to work for him in Montgomery County. Nobody knew the name until he walked in. We had a receptionist and I said, Fred Thompson's coming in, he's running for Senate. And he walked in and said, oh, you're the movie star. But I tell you that because I have supported Republican candidates, voted in the Republican primary, and been a Republican back. There's an old song by Barbara Mandrell that says she was country when the country wasn't cool. I was Republican when it wasn't cool to be Republican in Montgomery County. Other than that, I'm not a member of the Heritage Foundation or any other organization.
Let's make this a final question. What injustices have you witnessed in or outside the courtroom, and what was your response to those events?
You want to go first on that one?
No, you take that.
Remember, you could also rebut as well if you would like.
Our questions are harder than the first three. I'm just gonna go ahead and say that.
You've received more. It's only
Yeah.
2 of them.
That's true.
I want to redo.
I
A lot
remember.
of these.
Do I get more time?
If you go first, you do your minute and a half, she can do her, and then if you'd like to come back with 30 seconds, because you got some.
Speak if I come up with 30 seconds.
I remember when, a long time ago, I was appointed on a juvenile case, and there was a young man who was accused of stealing fireworks, and the police officer accused him of it, and everybody thought he was guilty, and we started asking questions, and it's in juvenile court, there wasn't going to be a whole lot happened to him. We started asking questions, and we found out he hadn't done it. And really probably the reason that he had been accused of that was because of the color of his skin. And I was proud that although it was just in juvenile court, that we were able to show he wasn't guilty, and that's one thing I remember.
Yeah, it's hard to remember. I think probably for me, I can't think of any specific incident, but just over my years of practice, seeing people that probably were not treated fairly because of their socioeconomic status or their color of their skin or other issues like that. It's hard when you're a young lawyer to not, you want to help everybody. You know, you're fresh out of school and you feel like that's our obligation, that's what we should do. And you try to do that for a while, and then it becomes difficult to do. But I think that's probably the hardest thing, that to just witness that. And then what the response to that is to try to help, you know, where you can and provide services that you can, or to try to help get them to different areas that they can go to. And I'll say, Two, I think we have just a huge problem with mental health issues, and I have had the experience as a lawyer, I'm not now speaking as a judge, of seeing folks that have mental health issues and they can't get the treatment that they need, and that leads to a lot of other problems, and I think that's a big injustice that we as a nation are not dealing with well.
One final question, and I wish I planned on asking this to the first group. I didn't, but I want to ask y'all because I think there's going to be losers in this, but I don't think we as the public are losers because all these are quality people. But I've got to ask you, do you have any political aspirations? Because I think a lot of these people would do good running for office. Do you have any political aspirations beyond the bench?
I do not. I have not ever had any political aspirations beyond the bench. I have loved being a lawyer. I think that's a great profession and a great service that we've been able to provide. And to me, being a judge is the next step from being a lawyer, and I'm planning to go no further than that.
The office I seek is the one I want. Politics is interesting. You love sports. Politics is kind of my sports, but
It's a hobby of mine also. Elections.
But I think my true calling is to be a judge. This door has opened. I'm going to try to walk through it. I appreciate y'all's help and let me walk through it.
Thank you, they've each.
That's the questions. Let's give them a big round of applause for the questions. Now we will have the 2-minute closing, and we're going to go in reversed order. And as soon as they are finished, please keep your seats there. I want to take your picture there with Mr. Walker. Let's give Mr. Walker a big round of applause for helping us out again. That was great. And so we're going to, and as soon as I'm finished too, I'm going to turn the meeting over after the 2 minutes to the chairman, Robert Gibbs. We started with Jull Ayers, so we're going to start now for the 2 minutes to close with Robert Bateman.
Thank you again for listening to us tonight. I talked to you about at the beginning that I want to be your elected employee, and I think I have the background and experience to be your judge for Circuit Court Part 4. I have experiences being a Republican and experience as a lawyer trying these cases. My opponent is a very nice person. She's an excellent lawyer in the field that she practiced in, but she doesn't have experience in the trial court. I told you that I tried to tell you a little bit before Mr. Red here beats the gavel, a little bit about me. My lovely wife Kim is sitting over there in the turquoise. My folks are sitting right over there, and I appreciate your consideration tonight. I need your help. I need your help on March 1st. You go in and look on page 10 of the ballot. At the very bottom left-hand corner for Part 4, it's going to say Bateman. Bottom left, I'd ask you to check that. I'd really like you to go out on early voting between February 10th and 23rd in case something happens with the weather on election day. But I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I thank you so much, and I ask for your vote.
Thank you. I too just want to echo that and appreciate y'all's time and interest in this forum, putting this on. It's great for everyone to get more educated about the candidates and before they go to the polls. You've heard us talk a lot tonight about the heavy caseload that we experience, and I'm already in that position. I was, again, honored to have earned that position by appointment from the governor. There was a significant screening process that started with a very lengthy online public application that you can view. We had a public hearing before the governor's council. We selected 3 candidates. Those 3 candidates were heavily screened. We did a background check. with the TBI, and then I was fortunate to have received that appointment. I hit the ground running from the day I was appointed. I rolled my sleeves up and got in there, and it is hard work. I hope you've heard enough about my upbringing, my background. Those of you that know my family, you know that we're wired that way, to serve and to work hard and be responsible for what we do. I've already got the experience of serving on the bench. I asked for your vote March 1st, or I agree, try it earlier. We never know what kind of weather we may be having March 1st. To keep me in that position, to provide that consistency that we desperately need, to provide that stability of the courts. I'm in there, I'm able, I'm experienced, I'm already hearing the cases, and want the opportunity to continue managing that docket. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mike Warner over here has made a video. On the table is some business cards. That video of this event will be on that business card. The web address or the YouTube address will be on there. Everybody get a ballot for this race. Everybody's got the ballot and ready except me, I suppose. So now I will turn this over to the chairman of the Right Way Clarksville so he can make a couple of announcements, and that will close us out. Remember, the candidates will still be here. You know, if you want to talk to them one-on-one and get their contact information, feel free to, and thank you for coming out.
Well, I've got a couple of things to say, and we'll adjourn the meeting, but I just want to thank all the judicial candidates for being here tonight and taking time to be with us. I want to thank Mr. Greg N. Walker for being here with WJZM. Thank Mike Warner for being here to tape our meeting. But also, I've had a lot of people ask me why we have this meeting here at G's. Well, I wanted to thank Cindy Serrero and her staff for allowing us to be here. One thing Right Way Clarksville does, we support locally owned businesses, and that's why we're having our meetings here. We're going to, Ron, if you and Ginger will pick up the ballots, and I'll announce the total after we adjourn once they count them up. But I just wanted to let you know, next month, February the 11th at 7 o'clock, we're going to have representatives in the Ted Cruz state campaign for president here. So we ask you to come if you'd like to be with us. And like I say, as soon as we get the totals, I'll come back up and announce the straw poll. Thank you for being here. We're adjourned. Okay, Ms. Ayers received 13 votes, and Mr. Bateman received 12 votes.